Hello, everyone. Welcome to our webinar talking about the app framework today. So today we're going to be talking about this new feature that we just launched last week. We've been working on it for quite a while now. We've been working on it since last year. We're going to go through a few different things today. But before we get moving, I do want to talk about a few little programming notes. First and foremost, whatever your platform you're tuning in from today, whether it be StreamYard or YouTube or LinkedIn, be sure to ask questions along the way. You can use the chat functionality of whatever platform you're using. We'll take a look at it. We'll be able to answer it on the fly as we go. But before we really get started, I am curious to know a little bit about who else tuning in today. So do let me know where you're tuning in from. Have you used Hygraph? Have you used either an app in Hygraph or a UI extension? What sort of role you have in whatever team you're on? But yeah, let me go ahead and get us moving here to talk about our amazing new app framework. So you may not know me. I'm Bryan Robinson. I am the head of developer relations here at Hygraph, and we're going to be talking about the app framework with our amazing product manager, with a customer, and with one of our partners. So what we're going to do is we're going to talk a little bit about what the app framework is, why we built it, hear from Kadu, our product manager, on it. We're going to talk to Statistics Finland to talk about how their custom use case is being met by the app framework. And then we're also going to talk with our partner Lokalise to talk about doing localization inside of your CMS with their product, all brought together with the app framework. And then at the last bit, we are going to do a live coding session. I'm going to walk you through getting yourself up and running to create one of these new apps. So as we go through, like I said before, if you have any questions, do post them over in your chat. And with that, we'll go ahead and bring Kadu up on stage, and we're going to talk a little bit about the app framework. Kadu, welcome.
Hey guys, good afternoon. How are you?
Good, good. So let's talk a little bit about what this thing even is today. So what is the app framework? And then we'll talk a little bit about why we built it.
So the app framework is a feature that we have on Hygraph that allows developers to extend Hygraph capabilities. So it's from creating custom fields for custom data that you would like to add to your content data, or sidebar elements to improve your editing workflow or developer workflow, to also creating completely customized app fields so that you can bring your own workflows. If you are you have another platform, you are another platform, you can bring your own workflows and capabilities inside of Hygraph.
Yeah, so we've been working on this for a little while now, and we had something, if you're familiar with Hygraph from before, called UI extensions. And it could do similar things, but why did we decide to kind of work from the ground up and make this whole new version called the app framework?
Yeah, so UI extensions is a great feature that we have in our platform. It allows you to extend a graph already. Uh, like you could create already like custom fields or custom sidebar. However, we after talking to our users or our customers, we quickly realized that it has some limitations. So, for example, the installation process, right? UI extensions was created mainly for developers, and if you are an end user, if you would like to install it, it's a little bit hard. You would need some developer experience to be able to install the extensions. Another limitation is that if you, let's say you have you create a bunch of custom fields or sidebar for your project, and you would like to install them, right? With your extensions, you can only install one element at a time. So if you have like 10 elements, you would have to install each of these 10 elements at a time, which is not a great experience for users, right? And also, if you would like to bring some custom workflows, like I mentioned, apart from custom fields or custom sidebar, if you want to bring your own UI from another app with UI extensions, it's not possible. So we created the app framework with this mindset that we would like to provide to developers the best experience possible so that they could create or extend Hygraph the way they need to fit their own needs or their own workflows.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of those important pieces, like you mentioned, is the idea of being able to install these without developers. So some of these apps are already available at hygraph.com to kind of look at and install, and you actually don't need a developer to install those apps. Like we're going to talk with Lokalise later on today, and that is an app that theoretically you don't need a developer to install. It will just be a couple clicks, couple copies and pastes, and you're good to go. So I think that's really an important aspect that you talked about there. But yeah, let's talk a little bit about the use cases. Let's talk a little bit about the different powers that the app framework gives our users, both from a content perspective, but also from a developer perspective. So we've had custom fields for a little while, but what are kind of the use cases we're thinking about in terms of the custom fields in this app ecosystem?
Yeah, we have like a community in Slack, and we some of our users they come to us to ask like, can I use another HTML editor like TipTap or MCE? Can I have conditional validation? Can I have a custom like the color picker doesn't suit my needs? Could I have something like this? So basically, that's the power of custom fields, right? So you can extend all the native fields that we have on Hygraph, being that a string, markdown, or a toggle, or something like that. You can basically extend them to create a field to fit your own needs, right? And like for the custom field, I have a great example here, which was actually a feedback from the community. We had a user like a few months ago. He would like to provide like for the content editor. They are not familiar with like color codes, like hexadecimal codes or things like that, and they would like to be able to provide only the branded colors for the content editor, right? And so I will share my screen with you quickly so that I
Yep.
can showcase this example. So basically, to explain the problem, we have a color, a field on Hygraph here, but you need to you don't only have these options of colors that you can pick here, and you can also input your RGB, your hexadecimal color. But if you want to customize this color picker, currently it's not possible, right? And then it is where like custom fields comes in hand. So basically, I created an app, which is this app here. Let me show you quickly. This React Color app, which I have installed already in my project. And what this app does, it uses React Color Picker like behind the scenes. So I'm going to add this field here. So let's say brand colors. And let's say I have some colors here as an example, and I can just put the colors here, right? So what we expected here as an outcome is that we should be able to see these brand colors, and the editor can just select the color that you would like to add to the content, right? So here is like a banner model which you can think about. Maybe you have in your front end, you have like a banner, or you have a hero where you would like to customize the background color, right? So I will just remove this field here because I don't need it anymore. And then I will go to the content editing. I will just edit here, and now I have the brand colors, right? So behind the scenes, it's this field is the same as our native color picker, you know. So if I select here, it just store the same data type, but the experience is completely different for that, right? Yeah, and that's it. So basically, if you would like to extend any field we have in our UI, you can just do that using the app framework.
Yeah, and the thing I like most about this example is that our color picker is a great color picker, but it allows for either very small selectable colors or too many options, right? They could use that color picker and pick whatever they want. This kind of splits the difference, and then is whatever UI we as a developer want to add on to that. So if you wanted to use React color picker, you could. If you found another Vue or React color picker that you wanted to use, you could use those as well. And you get to protect your editors at the same time as writing the code exactly how you want to write it.
Yeah, absolutely. So it works for other use case. So a switch is a great one as well. We have people, they would like to, instead of display like true or false to the end user, they would like to have like a switch. It's also possible. You can just like bring any like UI framework like Material UI or Days UI. You can just integrate them and have like provide this switch or toggle button to your editor.
Absolutely. And things like image pickers, you could bring in your images from really any digital asset management like Cloudinary, something along those lines. And then, yeah, range sliders, ratings, really anything that you want to give a custom UI to the way the data is input is possible there. So yeah, but fields aren't the only thing, right? We also had this idea of the custom sidebar elements as well.
Yeah, the custom sidebar is basically on your content editor. You have a sidebar with some options that you can interact with the form. And the idea of the custom sidebar is that you can extend the sidebar with custom, like, let's say, widgets, right? So let's say you have, like, right now we have integrations with Vercel and Netlify out of the box. But let's say you use AWS as your host, right? So in this case, what you can do basically, you could create like an app which like would be integrated with AWS, and then you just install on your project, right? And then you can just go here to, for example, this again the banner model sidebar, and your widget is available here. So it's this one like is example docs which I'm using right now for this for the sake of this demo. So if I go here to the content again, I have the deploy to AWS. It does nothing. Of course, it's just a dumb example. But if I click here, it's going to like deploy to AWS, and then I should receive here like a feedback, right? Okay, the deployment was done successfully. So sidebar, there are a bunch of other use cases. We have, for example, if you want to integrate with Google Translate, you can have like a click to translate here. Or if you want to export your content to another service, you can also have like a button here to export your content. So basically any interaction or any workflow that you would like to create to extend your like editing experience, it's possible using the sidebar as well.
Yeah, it's important to note that even though we're not in that content form anymore, we have access to everything that's in that document. So along the SEO check, you can check any of the fields that you have over in your content. Later on today, we're going to be using a slug field to populate a QR code. So all of that is going to be available not just in the custom fields, but also in the custom sidebar as well.
Yeah, and I think it's worth mentioning that you have access to all the data that's displayed here. But of course, if you need to grab information from like the other models using GraphQL or an external API using GraphQL or REST, everything is possible from here. You know, not only from the sidebar, also from the field, it's possible. So it's all available in that framework.
Absolutely. And it's all whatever code you want to put in, as much or as little as you need. And speaking of that, we have the fields, we have the sidebar elements, but we also have kind of this full takeover that you can do called the new app views, right? So this is the sidebar and the fields had some of this functionality in the UI extensions. App views is completely new, right?
Yeah, the app view is completely new. It's one of the lacking features in UI extensions. So after doing some research and talking to customers and understanding their needs, not only customers but also like partners, other platforms that would like to integrate with Hygraph, we realized that we needed to provide a way for them to bring their own UI or their own workflows into Hygraph. And that's why we created app views. So app views is a way to like bring to Hygraph your own UI. I have a very simple example here. We are going to showcase that better when we talk about localize, and you have a better understanding. But basically, in this case it's a React application that's running here. So if I go like in my code here, I can just quickly change the information. So uh, let's say hello everyone, and thanks for studying. So if I save here, you can see that it just refresh, you know, and here you can have anything. So you can bring your own UI. Let's say you have like a dashboard if you like to display some statistics from your application, or if you want to have like a image gallery or content. If you want to expand like the way we have content here, maybe you would like to display content in a different way. So anything is possible here. So basically you are building your own application on top of a Hygraph here with the app view.
Now we do have an excellent question from the chat, which is, do we have any app source code for a lot of these, or example code for the sidebar examples, or anything else?
Yeah, we in the documentation we have like a tutorial, very comprehensive tutorial about how to create apps from scratch. But because you might not be like, if you want to quick start with something, we have a next.js quick starter. It's available there. You can basically install that on your machine, run it, and you, of course, you still need to register your application. But you can, like, in 5 or 10 minutes, we can have quickly an app running on Hygraph, right? But even though if you want to have something more complete, we have some examples available. We don't have it yet available in our repository, but if you want to have something, we can just ask in our community. We would be very happy to share some examples with you and provide any support or assistance if you need, as you need.
Yep. And as we go forward, more and more examples will be made available as we kind of grow this kind of ecosystem where we're at right now. That Next.js starter that the quick start that we were talking about, we're gonna actually use that later on today to get up and running. It provides actually the boilerplate code for all the things that Kadu just talked about, as well as the setup and installation flows. So we'll
Yeah,
go
by the
through all
way,
that later.
sorry.
Oh, go
By
ahead.
the way, before I forget it, we have the Next.js starter in the documentation, but we already have the React, Next, and Vue starters. We are already working on them, so they should be available soon. So you can just take a look in our community. So we are going to announce them very soon.
Absolutely. Yeah. And there's like the actual developer experience working through that with the quick start that we already have, and I think that's going to extend to the quick starts that we're creating right now, is a really nice experience that gets you up and running very, very quickly, and then lets you kind of extend from there. And again, we'll get into that in the kind of the live coding portion as well. So Kadu, that's mostly it from what we're gonna hear about from you today. I appreciate you spending the time with us and kind of walking us through what the app framework is. If you have any questions for Kadu, you can post them in the chat on whatever platform you're on right now, but also be sure to come by slack.hygraph.com, which is our Slack community, and you can ask questions in there about the app framework, about the integrations team, about Hygraph in general. So come on by there. Kadu's in there, I'm in there, and we'll be answering your questions kind of as you ask them. So be sure to jump in there. Kadu, thanks so much for hanging out with us today.
Yeah, thank you very much, and see you guys.
All right. So next up, we are going to be hearing from one of our customers who has made a set of a functionality for their unique use cases. So I'm going to bring on the stage Juho Latinen from Statistics Finland. Juho, how are you doing today?
Hello, Brian. Thanks. I'm doing fine. How are you?
I'm well. I'm well. So I guess, can you start by giving us kind of a brief introduction of what is Statistics Finland, but also how you're currently using Hygraph?
Yeah, for sure. Well, Statistics Finland is an independently acting government agency in Finland, and we produce all sorts of statistics on Finnish society. And our main purpose is to process data accumulated from various sources in into statistics and then bring them to benefit all Finns and like our citizens, decision makers, and researchers. And then about the uses of Hygraph, we have over 200 content editors that are editing and publishing content on our public website, and we have been using several separate legacy systems before, and you can figure that it's always not that easy. And now we are moving to using Hygraph as an almost single source of data on our website. And currently we're in the middle of migrating content, and Hygraph is used for publishing the statistical information on our website.
Amazing. And so I mean, you've got over, like I said, over 200 content editors. That's a lot. So what challenges were you facing when it came to doing things like conditional validations within Hygraph?
Well, yeah, we have been using the Hygraph to show the statistical information and showing the upcoming publications in the calendar. So during this process, the need for validating the content changes, because at first only some of the fields are needed to be filled, and but when the publish data approaches, then there needs to be more strict validations in place, and then some of the validations depend on the other fields or other fields values. So that has been a tricky one.
And there's no built-in functionality for like this kind of escalating validation process that you just described, where, you know, as the publication date gets nearer, you have to validate harder and more strict. Can you elaborate a little bit on the experience of the app framework and how you're using it to solve it? Maybe give us a little demo around it too.
Yeah. Well, before this app framework, we had to rely on the webhooks that we have been running on the background serverless functions, and then there was the caveat that the user is not getting the error messages in real time, and of course more modules doing the validation it's always a little bit messy, and also in the beginning of the process when the publication is only as a calendar item, so it's not really published yet, but it's showing that it's coming. We just show the errors in the sidebar optionally, and then user can switch on the validation. But when the publish time is near and the content is marked ready to be published, we can restrict the user of saving invalid content. And this is done with the app framework solution, which I can show you now.
Perfect. Yeah. And so kind of to walk through that process real fast, you basically have a checklist that needs to kind of be done before these things get published, right?
Yeah, that's correct. Because there is translations and checking that all the data is there, and yeah. So is my screen showing? Yeah. Yep. Good. So for the validating thing, we have the article type. No, in fact, it's a publication type we have, and there we have the sidebar widget, which we are using, and here you can see that it's already attached to the schema or the model, and I can show that we don't have really any settings here, at least not yet. And let's see, here is the example. So for example, now that there is the Finnish version of the publication, and it's already saved, and it's already marked that it's already marked here that it's ready to be published, then you are not able to disable the validations anymore from it. But the English version is not set to be ready for publish yet, so it's not it's not enabled or restricted to have the validation yet, but you can optionally put it on. But you don't have to, because there is different kind of situations when content editors are putting only the part of the data and then saving and then leaving and maybe continuing tomorrow, or someone else is continuing. So that's why we need to have this optional before it's marked to be ready as published. For example, if I mark it like that it's ready to be published, and then I save, and then I think I need to refresh right here, and then someone else comes or the same editor comes again here, then you are not anymore able to disable it, because it's now we have marked it to be ready to publish. And then there is some extra validations. For example, if the publication type is dbpub or statpub, all the three translations has to be there. And now it's not, so it's giving an error about it. And when I add it, then again everything is good.
Yeah. So not only are you being conditional about how close it is to publication date, but you're also being conditional about certain fields that get set require different validations, right?
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's a really complex use case, and like I don't think we as Hygraph would ever probably build that into the system, because most people don't need that. But you've been able to come in and add it, right?
Yeah, and that has been really helpful, because as I told you that before, we have been using these webhooks, and all this validation has been done after the first save happened, and you have to be waiting that the webhooks have been triggered, they have been run, and then again refresh the page, and then you see if there is something to fix. So this is a huge improvement.
Yeah, absolutely. Now that wasn't the only challenge you were facing, right? You also had a challenge around duplication and content duplication inside of Hygraph that you needed to fix, right?
Yeah, that's correct. There was a need for duplicating the content, and there are few articles that needs to be duplicated every month, and there are a lot of fields. And there are some fields that are not meant to be copied or duplicated in any case. So when content editor forgets to remove the unwanted fields by hand or manually, it's causing other problems in our systems. So we needed to figure out some fix for this, that we can still use the duplication, but that it's not on the content editors to remember do that stuff.
I think we've all hit that experience where a content editor just copied everything and forgot to change that one little thing, and then the data makes no sense anymore.
Yeah, exactly. And I also have demo for this one.
Perfect. Yeah.
So it's article. Yeah. So here is one example article. There is some content in 2 languages, and then there is some statistical image and the titles. And when I click the duplicate, it works just like the duplication works before, but now the duplication helper is running without any user action, and it removes the unwanted fields. And for the demo purposes, it's removing the content and the images and tables. So
but it kept that title and the 2 translations
Yeah.
and the title field. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Exactly.
That's awesome. Amazing.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing all this with us today, Juho. So along the process, would you recommend doing this sort of thing and creating and extending Hygraph to other developers at companies that have these unique situations as well?
Yeah.
Perfect. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, because at least I think that the possibility to extend the Hygraph's own functionality, that at least what comes to the editing the content, is a huge thing. And by default, you are getting a working CMS. It's a good one. but of course there are some cases like we had something that is not provided in the control panel. So it's a huge improvement that now with the app framework we can modify and extend Hygraph to suit better in our business cases, and I think this is something that many others are going to be really thrilled about also.
Amazing. Well, thank you for spending the time with us today and walking us through this, as well as being honestly one of our beta users on this. I know it's not always easy being a beta user on new technology, so I appreciate that as well.
Yeah. Thank you.
All right. Well, have a good evening, Juho. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Thank you. Bye.
All right. So we've seen how this can be beneficial in very specific niche circumstances, but let's talk a little bit about more bigger use cases and what could be one of the bigger use cases other than localization. So I'm going to bring on to the stage Elena Pujol to talk about how Hygraph and Lokalise together work and how we can do great localization. Hi, Helena. How are you?
Hello. How are you, Brian? I'm good.
I'm doing well as well. So let's just start out. What is Lokalise? Can you give us a brief introduction of what you do?
Yeah, sure. Lokalise is a cloud platform for localization and translation management. And what's that, you might ask? Software is global, and companies need to adapt the language, the tone, the look and feel of their content to different geographies, different markets. This business process is what's called localization, and that's what Lokalise helps with. We have customers that range from large enterprises such as Revolut to high growth companies such as Chanable. And what they all have in common is that with Lokalise, they can manage with one single tool the entire localization process for their websites, their web apps, mobile apps, product documentation, marketing content, basically anything, any content that they might have in a platform such as Hygraph.
Absolutely. So without an integration, without kind of this tightly coupled piece between Lokalise and a CMS, what are some challenges that you think teams face in doing this localization work?
Translating content in a CMS without an integration presents challenge for everyone involved. And that is the content creators, the localization managers, also developers who are usually the ultimate content consumers on their products. So I would say that there are three main challenges if we weren't providing an integration. And the first one is related to managing the translation flow, as we just saw with Hugo, right? Because CMSs often support languages, but they don't usually have the features to manage the whole translation process, and they don't provide visibility into the translation progress of the content versions, right? Therefore, teams need to establish additional manual procedures to keep track of every localization step, as we just saw. And very often they need to rely on notifications from webhooks or human notifications between the content creators, the translators, the engineers, for doing all these handoffs. So you can imagine that this is a very human-led process, usually, and it can lead to tasks that stay open without a clear description, without a clear status for each language. It can be very hard to track the context for a translation. And you can start running then into issues like mistranslations, misplacements, duplicates. In the end, that results in lack of product quality. That results in something that the end user notices, just because some step was overlooked. So that would be the first challenge with regards to the translation flow itself. Then the second challenge of not having an integration is quite obvious also, and is related to exchanging the content between the tools. If you don't have an integration, the process is very manual, very tedious, because somebody has to download the content from Hygraph and then transfer it to Lokalise, and then do the opposite process. Once the translations are ready, they need to download from Lokalise, put them on Hygraph. And this means, again, that this exchange of content adds another layer of complexity. It slows down the translation process. It introduces one more potential point of failure, because it's just a manual process. And that takes me to the third challenge, because more mature companies, we often see that they will probably build their own scripts, their own automations to exchange the content, but that means that they need to spend this valuable time building and maintaining code. Therefore, anything that we can do from our products to make our customers more efficient is a win for everyone.
Absolutely. No one wants to maintain those pieces that connect one to another. That's just overhead that no one needs. So how does the idea of having a localized app inside of Hygraph, how does it help solve and streamline this localization workflow?
Yeah, this is a very interesting question, because actually, Lokalise, we have our own app store, and we have a few integrations with other content platforms. And in most cases, those apps allow users to import the content from those content platforms from the Lokalise UI, which is different from the Hygraph app. However, we know that many users prefer to initiate the content exchange from the content platform. So this is why we try to prioritize integrations on the CMS side, like the ones that we're going to see today.
Yep.
And that makes the whole localization process much more efficient, much more comfortable for everyone, because each user works on the tool that is more natural for them. And they can collaborate in parallel. And I'll give the example. No? You have the content creator working on Hygraph. Then whoever is in charge of the localization can automatically send the content to Lokalise, spare the work of downloading and uploading the content manually, which is burdensome, as we mentioned. Then linguists work on the Lokalise side. They will just get the content. They will see their task. They will work on them. And once the translations are done, we're good to go. Someone can just validate that the whole flow took place, the quality is good, and someone just needs to click a button to get the translated content back to Hygraph.
Yeah. And I'm going to pull up a quick demo of this real fast, just so that we're not speaking in the abstract. But you can see that we have in our Hygraph marketplace, we do have a localized app. It can be installed into any Hygraph project. As it turns out, I've already done this because probably people don't want to see me going and finding the API key and copying and pasting that in. But you can just click this, it asks you for a few pieces of information that you can find within Lokalise, and it's good to go. And you can see over here, we have a Lokalise dashboard with no translations right now. Nothing found, nothing needs to work. And we have over in, oops, that's for later. Here we go. We have our Lokalise app installed here. And I have some very, very simple content here. I've got a title field and a rich text field for our body. And I have English and German. And I don't personally speak German. I mean, I've got like high school German, most of which I've forgotten at this point, despite working for a company that is based in Germany. But if I wanted to localize this, I probably shouldn't be the one to do that. So I'm going to change this field to say that we are live demoing. I'm going to save this in. I don't want to publish yet because obviously the translation doesn't match. But you can see over here, we've got a few different things that have been added that wouldn't be in your default view. We had this idea of a localized app, which you can see this model is managed by the localized app. I can't touch it. I can't make any big things with it. But I now have this idea that we mentioned with Kadu about the app views. And I now have an app view called Lokalise, and I can go over to it. And we'll see how my computer handles multiple things here. But you can see we now have this idea that the title is a field that needs to be translated. And I can mark this and submit it to be translated in the Lokalise platform. Now, remember, we don't have anything in there yet. So when I click this button, submit to translate, it's going to ask me what I want to be translated. I don't want the English I don't want to export. Oh, I do want to export the English. I don't want to export German because the German one is the old translation. But I could select, if I've got like 5 different languages, I could select which ones need to be translated from. I can submit that to translate. It's going to give me a little notification here. And then once we're done, we'll go over to the Lokalise platform. Let me refresh that page. And now I love live demoing. It's always great. Let's see. You know, have you ever heard it work? It worked on my computer. It worked on my computer earlier today.
Yeah.
Let me submit to translate again, just to make sure. Let's select both, just to put as much data in as possible. All right. Oh, yeah. Yeah, perfect. All right. Let's go into projects, make sure that we're in the right one. I am going to show something that I'll have to regenerate later. Let's see, we've got our project ID. Let me make sure I'm in the right project here. Go to, I believe it's supposed to be this one. Oh, you know what? I bet we were in the wrong one. No. Testing Hygraph, I believe, is what we need. I'll just double check and paste in the ID. Not going to do it for me. Live
Maybe
demo.
you can check if there's some activity. Well, something that we would do now is check if there is some activity on the Lokalise side to see if we got the request to upload those keys. And if there's not, it means that something failed when the call was sent. Maybe there's an issue with the API key. Well, this is something that we would check.
Let's see. No tasks, no comments. Well,
it doesn't seem that you have the keys here. So the keys didn't get to Lokalise for some reason.
So let's quickly.
But well.
Yeah. Anyway, what you should be seeing here, if things had gone well, was the list of the two different or the one translation that is required, and the ability to translate either manually or from something like a Google Translate or a Microsoft Translate. Although ideally, you do it yourself, but having those in there was a nice feature that I noticed before. Yeah, I'm just going to go ahead and bow out of this demo since it doesn't seem to be working. What I'll do though is I will record it working, and I will share that with the community to kind of showcase how it runs through. I'll do it from scratch so that we can see all those keys come in.
Yes, please. And make sure, for example, these are the little details that we can improve in the app. For example, little details like making sure if the content needs to be at some status in order to be transferred to Lokalise, that the API key is correct. So these are checks that we can improve. So definitely room for improvement.
Well, and yeah, I mean, there's so much that goes into any of these integrations. So if you have any feedback along the way, again, the Slack community is a great place to add it, and we'll be keeping an eye on all of that as well. And again, demos, it's perfect. That just gives me all the confidence in the world for the live coding that I'm going to be doing here in a minute.
Go.
Anyway, so yeah, how do you kind of see the partnership or the integration evolving in the future? Obviously, making sure that the person demoing is fully good to go. But in the future, what kind of features can we maybe look to add and build out?
Yeah, for sure. It's user feedback for understanding what's happening or what's not working fine, so the user can react and can continue with the happy path. So definitely, this is something that we can add to the app. And now the app has been in beta for a few months. We are collecting feedback from users. We have about 30 companies using the integration now. And yeah, we need to understand how we can deliver more value because this is an iterative process. Some things that we've been considering, for example, is instead of having to initiate the content exchange from the UI, as you just showed, we could introduce a scheduler to transfer new content every once per day or whenever it's ready. Or we could have the app create translation tasks, for example, on the Lokalise side. So in the end, it's users who will help us plan these improvements. The user experience is key. And yeah, we couldn't demonstrate nicely today, but definitely this is lesson learned.
Yeah, well, and for me, I'm just gonna say I archived a whole bunch of stuff in Lokalise earlier so that I had a clean interface, and I'm sure that I deleted something that I shouldn't have. I'm gonna go with that, and I'm gonna say that in my effort to make things beautiful, I ruined something along the way. So yeah, so kind of can you comment a little bit along the process of kind of the build out of this app and the level of support from the Hygraph team and anything? And would you recommend that other technology partners build out apps as well?
Yeah, sure. And to be honest, the Lokalise app was built a few months ago. At that time we didn't have the documentation. Well, Hygraph didn't provide the documentation for the app framework. It was not available yet. We often had to refer to the Hygraph team. And while we worked with a shared Slack channel, there were people from marketing, product engineers there actively asking questions, contributing with answers, and the Hygraph team were always very responsive. They made it really easy for the engineers to get the app reviewed, approved. And yeah, recently I've seen the documentation for the Hygraph apps framework is now super complete. It walks you through the whole process for building the app, using your libraries. It gives you guidelines to build a setup flow, the installation, the configuration. So I guess it's even easier now. And yeah, I would encourage any Hygraph partner or customer, if they have a use case, just give it a try, experiment, and yeah. Very useful.
Yeah, and I think it's just going to continue getting easier as we, like you said, in the iterative process, keep taking feedback and keep refining the process. Well, Elena, thank you so much for being with us today. I apologize for the lack of proper demo, but like I said, we'll figure out a way of getting a demo out there as well. So thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you, Bryan.
All right, let me do some work behind the scenes here. We are going to move into the last section of our presentation today, and that is going to be talking a little bit about how to actually build one of these things. We've seen a lot of great use cases. We've seen small, simple things, obviously some very large things with the Lokalise app, but let's talk a little bit about how we can build this ourselves. And I'm going to kind of walk you through how that process looks. And we're going to build a quick QR code generator in the sidebar. So this would be something that if you're working with a marketing team that needs to be able to like print out QR codes, you could actually have this generate from the URLs of your content pieces to create a QR code custom for each document in your Hygraph project. So I've done a few things ahead of time that we're not going to walk through today because I figured that you probably don't want to see me npm install a bunch of things. So I actually already have up and running a next.js application. This comes from, and actually I need to pull this up as well, our app framework. Let's see, introducing the app framework. Here it is. So we have the new app framework, and we have in our guides some quick starts. Let me find where that is. So you can see we have the API reference, we have the React SDK and the JavaScript SDK. Both of these are available if you want to just dive in and get to work on those. However, if you go to our GitHub, we also have the idea of the quick start, and you can actually run that by running it via npm. We have it set up so that it's a create next app. So you can run npx create next app, and you can use the example. Let me copy and paste this so we can go to the documentation to showcase the boilerplate code. So here's that quick start repository. We, like Kadu said earlier, we have a React one that's coming. We have a Next and a Vue one coming as well, so that whatever your framework of choice, it'll be somewhat represented along the way. But you can see here we have the quick start. You run the npx create next app inside of your terminal, and then it's going to create a directory. In this case, this one says my Hygraph app, and then you have to register it within the app ecosystem as well. So I already have this app here, and you can see I'm already running it over in this terminal window here. So the next thing that we would typically need to do is go into our Hygraph profile. And if you go to your Hygraph dashboard, anywhere that you've got your avatar, whether that is in a specific project or on your app picker, which you can see I've got way too many apps or way too many projects, you can go to the Your Apps area. You can see, just like in Kadu's, I've got quite a few examples. Here's the demo day that we're going to work with today. But if we were to create this new, it would ask us a few different things along the lines of permissions. I gave this one the ability to read and write to the content API, although we don't actually need that for this example. But the important thing to note when giving permissions is once you create the app, you cannot change your permissions. And this is a safety feature because other people could install your application. And if you gave it no access and then changed it to full access, obviously that would be something that would want to be notified kind of across the board. Within that, I gave it a name. I gave it a description. I gave it an avatar, which I just put my smiling face, so you'll get to see that in the admin. And then there's an API ID, which also comes where the shareability comes in. If you had this enabled for sharing, somebody can find it in the app.hygraph.com/apps at that key. And then importantly, we need a URL for having the setup. The setup is where the installation and configuration takes place. You can see I'm using a local host for this, but obviously this is an application that you could publish to one of your domains and have it ready to go. And then the relative paths there are where the various pieces are. And we'll see that here in a second when I show the code. You can see we also have this idea of elements. Elements are where you're going to add the various pieces that Kadu talked about earlier. Sidebar elements, custom app views, and custom fields. So in this case, we have a sidebar element. I named it sidebar to be very generic in this way. An app ID, the type, which in this case is the form sidebar. This is where you could choose form field or the custom app view. And then the URL inside of our code base that this is going to live at. And then you can also give some configuration values and some other things in there. For now, we had all this kind of set up, and I need to also have it installed in one of my projects. So I will go to this button here, which is the install app. If you just had this, you could share a link and anybody could open it in any of their projects to install it. I'm going to just install it locally into one of my projects by clicking that install link. And then I'm going to choose the project, which is my app test project. You can select any of your environments there. I'm just going to put this directly on the master environment, and I'm going to install that app. So you can see it's going to automatically tell the user what permissions it has. So it's got the read write that we selected, and it has the ability to perform an authentication token to perform the installation flow if we need it for adding various features or models, like how Lokalise had the model on the localization events. So I'm gonna go ahead and authorize this app to do that. And it's going to install on my project. You can see here by default, we're going to get this information. This information is coming from the boilerplate as it stands right now. And the boilerplate is very, very simple stuff. In fact, you saw a little bit of how it kind of worked in Kadu's demo earlier. But we have a few different routes in our pages directory. If you're familiar with next.js, each file in the pages directory is a file-based route. It becomes one of the URLs in our final project. So you can see we have the setup.tsx. You can use TypeScript in this. And this is where the installation and configuration comes from. So you can see we have an exported function down here of setup, and it's going to wrap it in our wrapper from the app SDK inside of React. All of our app needs to flow within this idea of the wrapper so that it gets all the proper context from our app framework. And then from there, we've got the setup element. Setup element is a function, and this is all from the boilerplate from that quick start in Next.js. Again, there's going to be a React view and Nuxt in the future. The basics of what's happening here is that we're getting the installation information, the installation object, off of the use app helper. And then we're checking to see if the installation status is completed or not completed. If it's completed, we'll return the configure element, the configure component. If it is not completed, we will return installation. Inside the installation, we have this idea of update installation. It's a function that's going to allow us to update the installation information and the ability to basically have this functional component as well. I'm using a little bit of stuff that's not super readily available called Baukasten, which is our design component library. It is technically available, and you can find it at baukasten.hygraph.com for the information there. It is not, let's just say it's a very low-key beta, and it is available for use right now as well. But you can see we've got a stack with a gap. We've got a box that has a heading and text. And all of this is translating to this idea here of Hygraph boilerplate app, example app, and install app. The install app is a button that has an on-click function. And all we're doing here is we are changing the status of the app, which you notice we were using in the component up above. We're changing that to completed. And this would also be where if we wanted to add configuration elements, we would add that in here as well. We could pass in various data to be stored in the configuration of this app. For now, we're just going to leave it as this install app, and we're going to go ahead and get that moving. So we click install app, and it's going to install it, and we'll see a small change momentarily. We see the toast pop up, demo day example has been updated, and you can see we've changed from install to save for our button text. And that's being controlled not in the install function, but in the configure component here. Again, we're grabbing the update installation, and this allows for when somebody saves to do some sort of updating. We'll actually get into that here in a little bit, but for creating our first little sidebar component, we don't need to worry about that yet. Now, we added the element of sidebar inside of our app configuration when we installed the app or when we created the app in our apps. So now, instead of having to go back into the code, we actually have that sidebar element available for any of our sidebars in our models. So this is the same that we used earlier with the Lokalise example, but you can see we have fields, we have a title, slug, and body. And then we also have on the sidebar, the basic system sidebar information. We can now also add the custom widget here. We'll call this, instead of sidebar, QR code, because that's what we're going to be making today. And we're going to go ahead and add that in. This will take a second as it gets added in. And that will give me a second to look at checks. I know we've got a few things possible. Hi, is it possible to use the app framework on an existing project? If yes, should I continue using UI extensions or should I use the framework instead? For all there's a great question, Alex. For all upcoming projects that you're working on, you should start using the app framework instead of the UI framework, instead of the UI extensions framework. At some point in the distant future, and I don't have an exact date, but it is not in the near future, we will end up deprecating the UI extensions. But in the meantime, they're still perfectly fine to use. I would just say, going forward, you want to use the app framework. And then somebody asked, Philip asked if the link for the presentation can be shared. Absolutely, we'll share that with all the emails, and we will share this video as well. This video will be available on our YouTube channel as well, so be sure to check it out there. So that was a good chance for me to check in, take a second, and look at the comments. But you can see here, we now have our QR code. I'm going to move it up to the top just so it's the easiest to find. And we'll go ahead and go to our content and go into this one piece of data here, which you can see now we have this click me, and it has this quick alert. And we want to update that. We obviously don't want just a click me button for the QR code. We want to showcase a QR code for this as well. So what we're going to do there is we're going to move over to our sidebar, which I've converted over because for demo purposes, I think JavaScript is a little bit easier to understand than TypeScript. So I've converted this to a JavaScript JSX file as opposed to a TSX file. TypeScript is perfectly fine to use. In this case, we'll move with just JavaScript. So yeah, you can see here we have a sidebar element. The sidebar element has installation information that we're not using yet. And then again, we've got this idea of wrapper, which is our context wrapper for the app framework. And then inside that, we are just displaying that sidebar element. And this is what displays when somebody adds it over into their project. And again, this is all running locally on localhost. And then later, as I publish this, I would then change that URL over to a published URL. So let me pull up my notes real fast and see what the next step that I want to go through is. The next thing we want to do is actually get a QR code generator. I'm not going to write that from scratch. I don't think you are either. So we're going to install that as well. We're going to install the React QR code package. This just gives us a QR code component that lets us do a lot of different things. So we'll run that install, and we'll get access to it at the top of our file. We're going to go ahead and import that in. So we're going to import the QR code from, thank you, GitHub Copilot, for not giving me what I want, from React QR code. I'm going to pull that up, make sure I've got the right thing. It is QR code styled that way. And now I can actually utilize that in my component. So instead of just having this flex here, I'm going to change this to be a stack. I'll have to import that from Calston as well, because we don't want this to be side by side. So you can see we'll have a little demo of Calston as well. This will be the stack component. This gets things stacked instead of side by side with flex. And then I'm just going to use the QR code component. And it's going to take a few different things as its props. And I'm going to go ahead and, just for the sake of brevity, pull this over from my example code on the side. So it's got a few different things that we can kind of worry about. It's got a size, it's got some styling that I'm putting in here. It's got a value, which is going to be full URL, but for now it's just going to be hello world. And then we don't need a ref right now either. That would be for more advanced features. And then this is an SVG that we're getting. So it's going to have a view box that we can set as well. And we're setting it to that size. So now as we clear up our code real fast right there, we're going to save that in. And we have a QR code. Now the QR code is specifically hello world. It is the QR code representation of hello world, which isn't exactly helpful. We don't want every QR code in our CMS to be hello world. So instead, we need to add a URL that this is going to go to. And the first hurdle we need to get over for that is the idea that Hygraph doesn't know your final URL. It doesn't know the domain name that your project's at because it's decoupled as a headless CMS from your front end. We need a way of adding a URL. And because this is an app and could be installed by anybody on any project, I don't want to hard code that necessarily. So what I can do is I can create in my configuration flow the ability to have that configuration data. So let's go ahead and go back to our apps, which are over on the left-hand side of the dashboard, and let's go to the edit page for demo day. Okay, and here we are with our boilerplate and the save button. So the next thing we need to do is go back to our setup file. And in our setup, we're going to add an input. We're going to add a place for this to be input, right? For user data. So I'm going to copy and paste a little bit here. We're going to grab the label and the input from Belcastin, just so we've got a little bit of style there. And as you can see, we have a little bit of other things as well. We've got the HTML4 for some accessibility. It's going to be for our URL field here that we have. And then we have this idea of a URL and a handle change. And we don't have this information, but this is a React component, so we can make this work. So up at the top of our component, we're going to add the URL. So we're going to use that from the React use state. Let's go ahead and import React as well. Import React from React. And then we'll basically have this idea of the ability to have it set to a basic string. Now, we don't actually want just the string, because once somebody saves this in, I don't want this to revert to being an empty string. So I'm actually going to, from our use app, bring our installation information here as well. This is where all the installation data, such as our config, are stored. So I want this to be either a blank string, or in fact, I'd rather it be from the installation.config.url. So all that config information comes from the installation area as well. I'm gonna go ahead and get rid of our typing here, just again, to make this a little bit clearer as we go. So now we also have this idea of a set URL hook that we can use as we need to handle our change for our input. So let's create a new function, handle change. That is going to have an event that comes from React. And then within that, we are going to basically just, for our purposes right now, set the URL to the target value of this. This will make it so that when we submit our information, we have a URL that can be added in here. There are much bigger, better form libraries out there. You can use anything that you want in this way. If you want to use Zod or something along those lines, you absolutely could. I'm doing bare bones for the example today. So now we have a handle change. We have the URL being set, and we need to pass that URL to our configuration as somebody updates their installation here. And again, in the future, I would move this also into our installation flow. So we just want to add in the URL to our configuration. And now we have this URL field. And just for brevity, we'll say this is going to localhost 3000 as well. We can save that in, reload, and you can see we've saved it. And by default, we get that saved in. So we're good to go. And we can now bring this into our sidebar component as well. So let's move back to our example. And you can see here, we still have the QR code. We haven't used that yet. And we can go over to our sidebar.jsx. And you can see here, we have the installation. We need to use that installation as well. So what we can do is we can bring that and we can set that as our full URL, or as the URL we're going to use. So I'm going to set a new variable at the top of this sidebar element called, let's call this base URL. And then we're going to check the installation. We don't actually want, thank you very much, GitHub Copilot. We want to check this off of the config, and then we call this just URL. So here we're checking for installation. If there's an installation, we're getting the config object, and on the config object, we added the URL field to our configuration. So from here, what we can do is we can pass this value to our value of our QR code. And we can also maybe update our alert so that when we click it, we can make sure that we're getting what we expect here. So we will alert base URL there. You can see the QR code has changed. And when I click this button, we now get that localhost 3000. So we're configuring that in our configuration workflow there. I'll pause for a second and see if there are any questions. And yeah, it looks like there aren't any new ones. Shahan from Hygraph and the Hygraph team is answering folks as well. So that's good to know. So now the next thing we need to do is we need to take this slug field and we need to actually add this in to our QR code. And we can do that by accessing the form data that we have. So we need to come into our component again, and we're going to grab the form data from a new hook inside of our app SDK. And that is going to be the use app hook as well. So we've got a use app at the top coming in from the app SDK React. And then we're going to use that inside of our component. So we'll set a new variable, const. We don't want app, we want const form, which is going to get us all the form elements from the application. And then we need to actually get the slug off of that form. So we're going to do that in a few different ways. First, we need to go ahead and set a new variable. And we're going to set const, and we need the slug on this one. So we'll also have a set slug, and we'll use a state of a blank string again to start this process. And then we need this to basically fire as this gets updated. Now, you could have this happen on save, but I want to kind of show off the fact that this is live updating for this demo. So anything that is editing in the form, so like we mentioned the SEO example earlier, you could have it automatically change in the sidebar as well. So we'll set up a use effect on this from React, and we actually don't need to watch for form. And inside this, we're going to use that form object. And on that, we have a method called subscribe to field state. And this is going to hook us up into the field state to watch for any changes to certain fields inside of it. In this case, I know that we have a field that has a name of slug. And then from there, we need to take, no, GitHub Copilot, don't help me on this. Thank you. We're going to pass this a function that takes that field state, so the current state of the field, and does something with that field state. So in this case, all we want to do is set the slug to the field state value. So this is looking to the field named slug with an ID of slug, go find the current value and set the value to our slug variable. And then I can use that slug variable to create a new variable called full URL. And yes, we're going to take a couple of template strings. We're going to take the base URL that we get from our installation and this new slug that we're getting from this subscribe to field state. And we're going to update both the alert and our value to that full URL. And so now we save and refresh, and I think I've got some broken code because that's the way the presentations have gone today. I do, so we can take a look and see what's in console right now. Probably just have some bad React happening. I have not defined use state. That's the problem there. So I've got use state in here, and I need to actually pull that in. So let's grab that from React. So we'll import both use effect and use state from React, and that should solve our problem there. Get to see some live debugging as well. And we'll refresh the page because we've broken things, and we will have a QR code. This is a different QR code, and we'll showcase that it can actually be even more different here in a second. But as we click, you can see we have the full URL that is displayed, localhost 3000. This is the title when we click that button. And then as we change our QR code, you can see that it changes live this QR code on the right-hand side. So now I'm not going to go into the details of making this a downloadable element because that gets into further examples as well, and that's kind of outside the scope of the app framework. It's basically you generate a file on the fly in the browser and have it download to the user's browser. But yeah, this is kind of the basic flow. You create an app, you give it certain configuration values, and then you pass those values into your elements to do various things. We have hooks into the form, into the sidebar, into all the data kind of all around as well. And DB, for the question, you know, I don't know that I have this in GitHub right now. I will put this in GitHub, and I will share this in the thread in our Slack community around the presentation today. We'll also share it if you registered for the event. We'll share it across in the email follow-up as well. So make sure you've got an example of this as well. But this is the basics of how you kind of go through it. And in this quick start, in the Next.js quick start, you've got the quick start for a field. So you can see here we've got a very simple input that just kind of changes that. You've got the quick start for one of those custom app view pages. Again, this is exactly what Kadu showed in his presentation earlier. And then the basic sidebar and the basic setup for these apps as well. So yeah, with that, that's kind of the end of the live coding session. I know that we did go about 10 minutes over the time that we kind of promised, but I think it's been good to kind of showcase how this gets built. If you have any questions, I'm happy to take some questions now, but I'll be available in, again, our Slack community throughout the day today and really into the future. I'm available. All of this can be found in our blog post as well around how the app framework can function. I'll post this over in chat. So you can kind of find out all the different apps that we're working on. You can find out the app framework SDKs. We have full documentation in our docs as well. So you can go to the resources section of our site, in the developer section of our site, go documentation, and you can look up our app framework. And actually, you can go directly, and I'll grab this as well, to the quick start. I'll post this in chat as well. And like I said, we have a React one coming very, very soon, and we have Vue and Nuxt on the way as well. So with that, and since I'm not seeing any questions in chat right now, I'm going to say thanks for tuning in today. I hope that you've gotten something out of the webinar. I hope that you have questions and that you are encouraged to come and make your own unique versions of these apps. I think there's a lot of power that you can get out of the field, the sidebar elements, and the page as well. And yeah, be sure to check out the YouTube channel. Philip, thank you for the subscription on that. We will have more information coming on the YouTube channel, both for the app framework as well as in the future, all sorts of other functionality and deeper code around Hygraph as well. So thank you so much for tuning in today, and we will see you in Slack and on the internet. Thanks, y'all.